And there was another word that you used that made me think of another question I'd like to ask you. You talked about alignment when it came to the different advice and everything. And something that made me think of is your own alignment, like with your identity and such, and how you might have ran into some challenges early in your marriage with you being a man of faith. And so, one thing I wanted to ask you is, what would you say like that internal struggle was like whenever you were early in your marriage and you were a Christian at the time back then too, but you knew that some of the things that you were doing didn't necessarily align with that identity that you had crafted for yourself out in public?
Man, that struggle, that internal struggle was something serious. And as I look back in hindsight, that struggle started early on for me, even before marriage. That started, I grew up in Baltimore City, Baltimore, Maryland. And I grew up in a household that was a church household, right? But I also grew up in inner city Baltimore. And so the disparity between, faith-based, rearing and what all my friends were doing in the streets, always there was that tug of war, right? And
Right.
the one always looks more appealing than the other, especially as a kid, right? Oh, I don't feel like going to church. They're going here. That looks more appealing. And I kind of carried that all the way through high school. And then when I was in college and I could make my own decisions, I was like, hey, let me try it out. Let me see what this is all about. And the disadvantage is that imbalance is often at play when you do that, right? You think about the
Right.
church kid that's been kind of sheltered, but I mean, I grew up in the city, so not really sheltered. But then when you make a decision to be like, okay, I'm going to figure the world out on my own, you tend to become an extremist. So instead of walking the line between what you grew up with and what you're trying to experience, you just dive right into that. Then that created a whole new, not new, but that created a different personality for me. And I didn't have any way of knowing how to prepare myself to come out of that thing that I monster that I had created to be a good husband and father. And so to answer your question, as I'm now my first year, 18 months or so of marriage, I'm struggling with, okay, this is the man that I thought I wanted to be, but that man and those man laws don't align with, not, you know what? I didn't even use the word align. Only thing I realized at that point was the man that I thought I wanted to be and the man laws that I had crafted and the ideologies that I had held on to, for some reason, it wasn't working in my marriage. So I was like, if I want my marriage to work, maybe I got to do something different. And that's where I really started to kind of dig within myself. I'm like, okay, I do want my marriage to work. I resolved in my mind, I do want it to work. I do want my kids to see me at least striving to be something. So what do I need to do? And that's where the journey began.
Uh, and so there are two things that I struggle with personally that are kind of in alignment with what you're talking about. And so I like to share them. And if it's something that you feel like you've experienced as well, let me know because I think it would offer some interesting conversation.
Sure.
Because I know one of the first things that popped into my mind with me struggling with that exact same thing, even to this day, somewhat still like at 24. First thing was the chaos that came from trying to play two roles. One thing I'll say about it is that you can think you're this Christian man and everything and all that, but whenever you go out on the weekend with your friends and all that, and you want to be, that street guy or whatever it is, it makes it to where it's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of thing, you could say. And you don't really know exactly who you are. It's like you're playing two different roles depending on whatever crowd it is that you're involved with. When I go to church, it's here I'm pulling out my Bible and everything like that, playing that role, being a polite guy, et cetera, et cetera. But then when I'm going out to the bar, to the club, or to some sort of event or like a party or something like that, not that same guy. And the thing that's also kind of like a side effect of that I would say is the second thing that I wanted to bring up is it really kind of crushes your self-esteem. Because the thing is, you can't play two roles. That's kind of what I had to learn. You're either going to be strong in one role, strong in the other, or you're going to be weak in both. And that was the thing. I wasn't getting the results I wanted in either because I was split. Maybe if I put all my strength and everything and attention into being that Christian guy, then yeah, I would actually meet my standards in that and I'd be, the strong Christian man. Or maybe if I put all my effort into being that guy that's like out in the streets, I'd be better at that. But the thing is, by having that split, it made it to where I was just unsatisfied overall. And then that definitely does kind of hurt your self-esteem whenever you're seeing that you're not measuring up as a man, not only in just one role, but in two.
Man, you describe my college years, like literally. What you just, I'm shaking my head while you're talking because I'm like, this dude was like watching over me for some reason.
I mean, I'm not far removed from college. I just graduated in 2020, but this is, still like fairly recent for me. So,
yep, you described it, and I'm not gonna. What I'm about to say, I don't want it to come across like it's an easy fix, but I'll tell you over time what I had to realize and start to do was that I had to stop trying to play both roles. And what I started doing was trying to figure out what characteristics do I want to be a part of who I am. So when I describe myself or when other people describe me, what are the characteristics that I want to shine forth in me? And I just started working on that. And it wasn't so that I could fit into the faith-based world or fit into the non-faith-based world. It was about who do I just want to be, period. And once I started doing that, I started to realize that no matter what the two worlds or how many ever worlds were, that I showed up as that person that I was developing in all of those. And that's when I began to get some peace. Because I'm telling you, I went through college doing the exact same thing. I'm a musician. I was a musician for a major portion of my life, but real heavy during that time. So I was playing for churches. I was playing for choirs. I got a million pastor friends even to this day. But at the same time, I was doing every other thing you could think of that had nothing to do with that other life. And then I was like, I went through the same thing you went through, the self-esteem thing. I'm getting torn between both worlds. The worlds are starting to collide. So now I'm kind of playing myself because I'm showing up kind of reckless for these church things where normally I would be clean and ready to go and you would never know. Now it's kind of, I can't keep the worlds from colliding. So I was like, wait a minute. Nah, who do I want to be? I want to be a man of integrity. I want to be somebody who, if I give you my word, you can count on it. I want to be courteous. I don't want women to be like, hey, that dude, he's just a player. He just, I want people to see me a certain way. And that's what I started working on. And that gave me some peace. And it also allowed you'd be surprised how many people begin to respect you that you thought would throw shade when they realize, oh, he's going to be that way regardless. You're not going to be able to sway him or make him do anything because he's going to be a man of integrity at church and he's going to be a man of integrity at this party, which means if something's about to get reckless, he's going to be like, I'll see y'all later. And they know that they can count on that. Like I have, I was in a fraternity and the guys, even at the height of my foolishness, when I started kind of working through that, they start calling me the level-headed one. They're like, oh, he only going to go but so far. Like if this thing gets real rowdy, he rolling out, like he's gone because he's not going to do it. And so I just started kind of building and working through that. And that helped me a lot.
What's interesting about what you just said is that was kind of the inspiration behind Himprovement, behind making the show. And, because it's all based on, well, I guess the transformation I've been working to make has all been based on a quote from college, which you'll see kind of relates to what you're just saying, but it was from a speech I had to remember. And the line that I always think about is be as true to a trust repose as the needle to the pole. And so what that pretty much means is that your actions should align with your morals and standards so often that people can put their trust in you to do those things like they would put into a compass to point them north. And so when you're just describing that, how people gain that respect for you and people always would look to you to behave in a certain type of way and saw you as like the level-headed one, the person that could be more measured in their approach and help the group to settle things. That's, you know, the exact thing that the show is all about, I guess you could say, developing into that strong, consistent person with a strong identity. So that way you can play that role in your life, you know, in your house, at work, anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of value in that. And I feel like that's when you probably live your most fulfilling life, whenever you get to the point to where you're that comfortable with yourself, to where you're always in alignment, no matter what the situation may be.